Right, let's move on to trigger warnings. So it used to be the case, I think it's fair to say, that trigger warnings were given to at least explicit material, adult themes, thinking about sexual assault, suicide, racism, those kinds of issues. But now Aberdeen University has taken it to a new level and has slapped content warnings on Peter Pan, among other children's classics. Rakib, do you think Peter Pan needs a trigger warning? Should an adult undergraduate be worried before they pick it up?
I think some elements of the academic sector have well and truly lost the plot. I've felt that for some time, but I think this is a new low, actually. The fact that there needs to be a sort of a trigger warning for Peter Pan, I think it's just absolutely bonkers, really. And I think in a way it demonstrates how there's a tendency among more and more academics just to infantilize people more generally, that they actually need to be warned about the contents of Peter Pan. Incredibly patronizing. I can't say anything more than the fact that I think it really demonstrates that not all is well quite clearly in our university system.
And the kind of justification for the warning that it could be emotionally challenging to learn about the gender roles, the strange gender roles in this children's classic. I mean, this is obviously not an isolated incident.
Yeah.
Usually people will justify this on the grounds that people need this kind of pre-warning. It's for their mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I think it was always nonsense, because when you first started to see this kind of crop up, it's probably knocking on for 10 years ago now, but maybe a bit less, in America, which is where all the terrible things come from, at the moment at least, or American academia certainly, which is... the justification was, again, these things are always quite limited, aren't they? Like, if you've got a survivor of sexual assault in your class, or someone who has experienced horrendous racial abuse and so on and so forth, therefore, if they're reading a novel or a play or even actually a kind of legal text, which might deal in some of these themes and cases and details, that you want to warn them so they're not quite literally triggered in the course of your class. That was always nonsense. I mean, there was a quite influential piece, I think, on the Chronicle of Higher Education many years ago in the US, which just rubbished that whole therapeutic justification for it. They were like, if you were a therapist, you know that this was, if anything, the opposite of what you should do with someone in your class, if you like. That kind of priming people to be upset by something makes them more likely to be upset. All these sorts of arguments were very well ventilated with the whole trigger warnings discussion. And yet it continued on, more and more different texts. It started just to be about certain themes that people might get upset about. In some cases, you saw them drop trigger warning for content warning because trigger was too upsetting. I mean, it all became self-parodic very quickly, because it was always clear this was about, as Rakib was saying, treating students like children, which has been the story of the past 20 years or more in general, in relation to their social lives, in relation to what they're reading, in relation to what speakers are allowed to come and address them on campus. What's depressing about it is that it's often fueled, obviously these things coming from administrations, but often fueled by the demands of the loudest voices amongst the student body, who actually want this kind of infantilization. And it's particularly depressing because in both the UK and the US, around the sort of 1970s, a little bit before, there was the battle was to get rid of what they called in loco parentis, the idea that the universities are effectively like school teachers. They're effectively like surrogate parents. You've got to be in your dorm by a certain time, keeping the boys and girls apart. All these different things that were kind of saying you're not really adults, because those restrictions were not only damaging to their own social lives, sex lives, whatever, but also politically. It was a thing that was the justification for regulating what could be taught and who could speak and so on very tightly. And you had a generation of students who completely rebelled against that. Now you've got a generation of students, certainly at least the activist set, the loudest voices in the room, who are demanding that the university authorities play parent. And that's just really quite depressing. There's no other way to put it. It produces all of these ridiculous results. But how could you not, if your working assumption is that students are basically children? Yeah. You're going to end up warning them not just about some gritty legal text, but even about beloved children's novels. I suppose it's the logical endpoint in a weird sort of way.
Well, surely everything could potentially be triggering if you really think about it in those terms. I think my favourite, or the worst example, I guess, the most ironic example was the trigger warning given by, I think it was Northampton University, to 1984. In case you might discover some thought crimes. Rakib, do you want to add anything final?
Well, I just think that more generally, I think academics should be in the business of trusting their students more in terms of being mature enough to handle the classic literature. I think that's what it boils down to. I mean, Peter Pan is a children's classic, which makes it all a bit more embarrassing, really. So I think that process of infantilization has seriously accelerated in recent times. And I think that it's a real shame that academics just don't trust their students more to handle it. I mean, I don't consider this to be particularly challenging material. There's material out there far more challenging that can really test one's, their views, their values, their thoughts, and all the rest of it. But I think that's part of the process when it comes to one's intellectual growth.
And hopefully more students rebelling against this stuff as well. Like you see this stuff, it's like a giant parental advisory sticker.
Yeah.
It should irritate the hell out of you. It'd be good to see more students pushing back against it.
Reject the safe space.